Well, the government's new freshwater policies are another step towards cleaning up our rivers, lakes and aquifers, yet it remains unclear how healthier waterways will actually be achieved. That is the views of our next guest in his latest opinion piece. Farm environment plans are one answer, but of course, project manager of a research project with Our Land and Water is Jim Sinnott from Cawthron Institute and joins us now. Good evening, Jim. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I understand from your work, which is a collaborative effort with Our Land and Water, there is a four-step approach which we'll get into. But what are the fundamental principles around going forward with your research around how farm environment plans are not just the be-all and end-all? It's a more holistic approach.
Yeah, I guess the fundamental point is that, as farmers well know, every farm is different. The land use, the soils are different, the weather is different, the land use is different, farming practices are different. And equally, every waterway is different. Every lake, stream, wetland is unique in some way. And our concern is that if we design kind of regulations based on one size fits all, and farm plans based on a template of what is industry good management practice, we won't get the local solutions that are necessary to make streams healthy. And also, I guess, fundamentally, waterways, then the health of waterways is a reflection of all the land use in the sub-catchment and the wider catchment. And so one farmer, one forester can't make a healthy waterway on their own. It requires everyone to work together. And so that's kind of what's driving our thinking around getting catchment groups together at that sub-catchment scale, neighbors working together with Tonga and Whenua to achieve the outcomes and the solutions that are appropriate for the local context.
Well, the Red Meat Profit Partnership have certainly led the way in the development of a lot of support around catchment groups. It has done land care, Manaki Whenua. It's been isolated a lot in the right approach. ECAN has gone out on its own as well and been quite leading around the regional council space. How do we now take all the learnings from these different groups and collaborate?
I think that, as we said, there's kind of, we're suggesting four steps. And the first one is perhaps the most important, and that's to focus on the outcomes. So let's identify what we want achieved at a sub-catchment scale, so that at a scale that's relevant for the waterway, but also makes sense for the landowners. So they feel as though their land use and their practices are contributing to an outcome at a local scale, somewhere that's near them. They can say, my land use is contributing to that. So let's focus on the outcomes. And then based on that, let's get the landowners, neighbors working together to prioritize, identify local solutions that will achieve those outcomes in their place. And that might mean working together and identifying that a wetland could be restored in one location that everyone can contribute to it and help with, even if it's not on their property. That might be the best way to heal that waterway. And so that's getting people working together. Go ahead.
Sorry, my apologies. In this collective management project approach, how are you looking to work with iwi's interests in, of course, the health of the land that they feel so connected to healing? Yeah,
I think this is really important as well, in that we need to get Tonga and Whenua involved at the local level. And I encourage farmers and other landowners to invite the Tonga and Whenua, call your local marae and ask them if they'd like to come along to your catchment group meeting and have a discussion about what's important to them, what they would like to see, and how they'd like to be involved in finding solutions for those waterways.
Can you tell us more about the Potplate project, the Mora Whenua Ora research project in more depth, and how you've seen some case studies work successfully?
Yeah, so this is early days, but we have another component of our project is called Potplate, and that is based on the idea of helping Maori producers and others who may want to join in this initiative, but we're focusing initially on Maori producers of food and fiber and other things, to connect them to consumers that are descendants from their home area who may be living away in the cities, and connecting to selling the food to them as a way of reconnecting those those descendants back to the land and also providing income to the landowners and producers. Maybe come back and help with some planting days or other things on the land as well. So that program is designed to reconnect people to the land and engender more of a sense of community and a sense of collective responsibility for the land and the water.
So you have a nearly $3 million funding project for the challenge under the National Science Challenge, Our Land, Our Water, which is going through to January 2023. What is your desired outcomes from that funding, Jim?
I guess our key goal is to get some recommendations to government and industry and regional councils on how they can best support catchment groups and landowners to achieve these outcomes by working together. So we've got 4 case studies, one in Northland in the Waitangi catchment, one in Hawke's Bay, one here next to Nelson, the Pelorus catchment, Tehoere, and one in Southland in the Purakino catchment. And we're going to bring those people from those different case studies together to share learnings and develop advice and guidance to not only catchment groups, but also to industry and government, to how we can best support these groups to develop local outcomes that achieve local solutions. It's
an interesting one because you've got quite a large advisory board that cross a regional council through to our industry bodies and a primary sector fish and game, all involved. But it's also very easy to regulate on a one-size-fits-all. How would you look to recommend when every single catchment and land ownership is so uniquely different to audit?
I guess I think we should be focused on the outcomes and audit based on the outcomes. That will incentivize and motivate everyone to devise locally appropriate solutions rather than ticking boxes for good management practice. So I think the key is to focus on the outcomes. Now we need to define those outcomes because they're not always defined at the appropriate scale in the regional plans. We need to get conversations with councils, Tangata Whenua, and farmers about what is the appropriate scale and outcomes for their local stream, because that may be a tributary to the bigger catchment. When we have goals for the catchment, we need to get those goals down to the appropriate scale so landowners know what they're being asked to achieve. And then audit based on the outcome, not based on whether somebody's built a fence or not.
I was just actually likening it to our viewership that will understand this, that you're effectively saying it's not the prop's fault in the front row for not pushing hard enough if the fullback drops it just before the try line. Everybody's in this together.
It's a team effort. We've got to work together or we won't achieve the outcomes. What the last thing we want is for farmers to spend a lot of money building fences or putting in new nutrient ponds, whatever, because it ticks some box. And then in 5 and 10 years' time, we find, lo and behold, that the waterway is not healthy yet. And so we come back to the circle again and get more regulation, more impositions on farmers, and more blame. That's the last thing we want. Let's design solutions that are locally appropriate, focus on the outcomes, and do it right the first time.
Jim, there's a lot of viewers and listeners I know will be saying, hallelujah, Jim, thank you so much. They're sick of being targeted specifically and individually when this is a holistic approach to healthy waterways that every single New Zealander is aspirational for as well. Thank you so much, Project Manager for an Our Land and Water Research Project under the National Science Challenge, Jim Sinner from Cawthron Institute joining us there. And of course, you can go to Our Land ourwater.nz for all of the projects that are being funded under the Science Challenge and the great work that they are doing there.
This is Sarah's Country.